Today's meeting is about, if we can put it in a nutshell, seizing the moment and the momentum for Europe. And I wanted to use this occasion to focus on 3 points with the leaders today. First of all, on enlargement, Europe's strength has always come from its ability to project stability, democracy and opportunity into our neighborhood. And it's not a charity, it's a geopolitical investment into our collective security. And I think we can say that the last few days and weeks have shown that it's happening. Member states have given the green light to start negotiations on the first chapters for Ukraine and Moldova, something that the European Parliament has long pushed for. This week, Montenegro also provisionally closed 2 more chapters, and work on its accession treaty is underway. So after years of little movement, I would say that the pace has picked up. Now, looking ahead and already, let's say, trying to take a few moments to see what could come ahead of us, judging from experience and the discussions that take place on a national level, we need to be clear that enlargement can only work if it is both ambitious and credible, and if it leads to EU membership. Ambitious enough to bring candidate countries closer through a merit-based process, and not shying away to discuss gradual integration based on real progress. It needs to be credible enough to reassure people that if done right with respect for criteria, conditionality and reforms, it's a win-win, and it will make our union stronger, fairer and safer. Secondly, on competitiveness, in a changing world, Europe's strength increasingly depends on our ability to innovate, to invest and to compete. We have the market, we have the capital and the talent. Investments are happening, but now has to be about channeling these funds where they need to go and removing the many barriers that we still have that prevent companies from growing and innovating in Europe. And that is why the One Europe, One Market roadmap matters. It gives the institutions a shared direction, clear deadlines and regular reporting, which is what we started with today, to focus on delivery. What we want to do in the drive towards this is that with most of the simplification packages voted, we're now working with unprecedented speed on the market integration and supervision package and EU Wink, because it is these type of initiatives that will help companies scale up and invest in Europe. Finally, on the MFF, we all know that at the end of the day, our strength in the world depends on a robust budget. Parliament is ready. We have been ready for negotiations with the member states. That's why the negotiating box put forward by the Cypriot presidency is an important step. It moves the discussion from broad principles to concrete choices that will need to be made swiftly. And here, my appeal to the leaders was to make progress on new own resources, because this will ease the pressure on national budgets today, while ensuring that we don't pass our debt burden to generations tomorrow. So ultimately, last sentence, enlargement, competitiveness and our budget are all part of the same challenge. How do we make sure that Europe is ready for what comes next? The momentum is here, we have it, but now we have to follow through, and it's our responsibility to do that.
Thank you, President. We have the time for a few questions. Martin from Telex? Yes.
Yes, let me see what you are.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Balázs Márton from Telex. And my question is about your meeting today with new Hungarian Prime Minister Péter Magyar, who wrote in advance that one of the topics he's planning to raise is the legal action the European Parliament launched against the Commission's decision to accept milestones or horizontal enabling conditions related to judicial issues, unfreezing basically all or some cohesion funds. What were the conclusions? What did you talk about? Do you see any actions that the Hungarian government has to take?
President.
Thank you very much. I had a great meeting today with the Hungarian Prime Minister, whom I know well since he has been for the past 2 years member of the European Parliament. We have already seen positive signs of constructive cooperation since he took office, especially on legislative reforms and Ukraine. We are very much encouraged by these. He invited me to visit Hungary soon and expressed his interest, as all prime ministers, to address Parliament. And I very much look forward to working together in the interest of Europe and Hungary. By way of recollection, Parliament's case against the Commission was in view of the fact that some of the procedural guarantees had not been fully respected. This was in the context of the rule of law conditionality in the receiving member states. This is something we will assess. The court proceedings are at the very end of the process. So let's see what can be done. And this will be taken in full consultation and discussion with the members of the European Parliament. This would be the similar case for any move on Article 7, which would require, if a decision is taken at the political level, that a report is drafted by the relevant committee and then a vote in the plenary.
Thank you. We now had a question first from Eddie and then Elena from ANSA.
Thank you. Eddie Wax from Euractiv. I actually have 2 very quick questions. Number 1, on the MFF, the Parliament will not negotiate with the Council until there's numbers in the budget. So that means that the talks, negotiations probably won't start maybe until November or even later. Isn't that playing with fire and risking pushing the MFF debate very close to the French presidential election and politicizing the whole discussion even more? On the second point, the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has said that the person who should negotiate for Europe with Russia should be from a small member state, and there's not many member states smaller than Malta. Have you discussed that with her, and are you available? Thanks.
Thanks, Eddie. So first of all, on the MFF, this is not a new position. It is what the European Parliament has always and how it has always approached MFF negotiations. We've taken the model of what was being done. I took the model that was done by my predecessor. This is, of course, a different Parliament. And it is with that in mind that we're taking all steps very carefully and very openly. That means that the interim report that we adopted in May was the clearest of messages that we are ready. We are ready to negotiate. We have 18 committees that are working on the individual files. But you can understand that for us to be able to negotiate on the individual sums means that there has to be a number on the table, and at the moment there isn't. So we're willing to work extremely fast when necessary. If that means that December is an option, keeping in mind that 2027 is a jumbo election year. We can go through many countries that have elections next year, and therefore we would be ready to work with speed once let's say, the button is pushed to move. So there is no problem as to the fact that our reports will be ready in time for negotiations. There's one thing to keep in mind, that adopting a position on the budget requires a qualified majority, which is higher than a normal majority, which means that we will need to work very hard to make sure that when it comes to the vote, there will be the numbers for it. As to your second question, I represent the Parliament and its members. I do that with responsibility and with pride. If there is any way for there to be a peaceful resolution against the backdrop of the fundamental principle of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, then the Parliament would be very supportive of any resolution to be found, not commenting on country sizes or anything.
Thank you, President. We will take Elena from ANSA, who had already requested it, and then Diego.
Elena Mustané from ANSA. It's kind of a follow-up from Eddie's question. I wanted to ask to you, President, which is the status of the negotiation talks with Moscow, and what do you think about the possibility of President Costa to be the special envoy for peace in Ukraine? Thank you. So
this is again to answer more directly to Eddie before. That was not brought up with me. Secondly, as I said, the fundamental principle of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine is what has been the Parliament's position since the very day of this invasion, and if there is the possibility of that to be delivered through a peaceful resolution, then the Parliament would be very much in favour of it. As regards Antonio, I have no doubt that he can perform in any task that he's given.
Thank you. Diego?
Thank you, Diego Velasquez with the Luxembourger Wort. Thank you. Speaking of contacts with Russia, this week you asked the advisory committee to check whether MEP Fernand Carta is breached the code of conduct. So I wanted to ask you, what red line did he cross that triggered a presidential reaction? What are you reproaching him? And secondly, in what way is what Mr. Carta is doing different from what Mr. Costa is doing, reaching out to the other side? Isn't he simply allowed to have contacts with Duma representatives, for example? Thank you.
So, first of all, thank you for this question. I will not comment on letters that are not public. But what I will say is that all members are expected to exercise their mandate responsibly and to be mindful of how their actions may be perceived and used, particularly in the current geopolitical context. And when concerns are raised regarding members' conduct, this is precisely why the Code of Conduct Committee was set up, in order for them to be treated with seriousness, with respect, and in accordance with the appropriate procedures. For background, and this is because you mentioned the Duma specifically, already in 2014, the European Parliament suspended its interparliamentary meetings with the Russian Federal Assembly. And it is in this context that there is a practice that we need to avoid anything that would cause confusion as to what would be the Parliament's institutional role and what would need to be done in accordance with the Parliament's competence.
Thank you, President. We had Anna Hubert, who has requested the floor.
Thanks a lot. Anna Hubert from Context. A question on the One Europe, One Market roadmap. I don't really understand the point of discussing it and presented it at EU level, EU leader level. What can be decided there? If there is blockage in the negotiation, what can they do? What can you do? What's the point of doing that at every EU go? And another question, since you just come back from Strasbourg when you tested new plenary rules, I would be curious to know what's your first assessment of those new rules. Thank you.
So, on the roadmap, this was a long process. It stems from a very successful negotiation of the 2026 political priorities that Council and Parliament decided on during the Danish presidency. And it was a commitment that we would identify joint priorities and we would meet them together as co-legislators. And that set, in a way, the backdrop to a more integrated process of where we are in the legislative sphere on common priorities, one of which is competitiveness. With competitiveness comes a long-standing need for timelines to be clear, respecting all institutional prerogatives, but also for us to identify where we are, where we should be, or where we won't be. And it is in this context that today there was the first exchange of views, where we see that to the large part the priorities are in sync and the deadlines are being met. It is not only a timeline that is set for the Parliament, but also for the Council. It is no secret that there are some pieces of legislation that are difficult in the Parliament, and Parliament will never be a rubber stamp for any Council decision. But there are also other files where in the Parliament there is already a position and there is not one yet in the Council. So it is a question of meeting every 3 months and saying, where are we? These are common priorities. We agreed on them. Are we going to manage? And if not, what will we do? The second one on the new plenary rules, this is something that I was given a mandate, a bit of a monumental one, by the political groups and many members across the Parliament to try to make, first of all, plenary attractive, but more importantly, effective. We were given that mandate to be as experimental as possible this week. There will be a full assessment next week before we draft the July plenary agenda. But what I can say already now is that there has been more presence in the chamber, could be better, 1. 2, the fact that commissioners are now intervening in the middle of the debate and sticking to time means not only that there isn't only just a pre-reading of speeches, but a concrete response to questions. This is something that the Parliament has insisted on for many years because one of our fundamental roles is that of scrutiny. Third, the question time with the Commission, with a one question, one answer, ping pong, was effective. I hope to be able to keep that because members have really asked to have the time to question individual commissioners on specific subjects. We are very glad to see that the commissioners are doing this and they are coming and answering the questions that are being put to them. We've also encouraged the increased use of Catch the Eye and blue cards, which blue cards allow members to pose questions to the speaker immediately preceding them and an answer, and Catch the Eye allows you to speak in a debate even if you were not planning to speak in a debate. That gives more flexibility and more openness. Will it be improved? Can it be improved? Of course, this was a test. Some things work, some things might not. Some things might work now and won't, but some things also need a little bit of, people understanding that we can fix what we thought was unfixable for decades. There is also this is quite a revolutionary change, which is with the fixed slots, which I hope will also help you in identifying what is being discussed at any one point in time, because that means that members will know and commissioners will know that their item will be on the plenary within a specific hour and not within a range of 5 to 6 hours. That has helped us be more targeted, identify what needs to be discussed, again, how the plenary can become attractive, but most importantly, how the plenary can become more effective.
Thank you, President. There were quite some requests, but we will group one if you allow, President, for the last round. Take 3 short questions. So, Vincenzo, you asked, Max and Christian. So, Vincenzo is here on the... If we can take short questions, then
yes,
perfect.
No, my question is, good evening, President Vincenzo Genovese from Euronews. My question is if you notice a new majority in the European Parliament, because yesterday there was an important vote on return regulation, and we saw a sort of shift from Renew Europe. If you have an assessment of this dynamic, and if you think this could be a new way of proceeding also in other files. Thank you very much.
Max and Christian.
Hi, Max Guerra for Politico. Also mentioning Renew, the chair of Renew said recently that any president in general, and whoever comes next, any president in general, that they would only support a president that would make sure that the far right, the patriots, are excluded from bureau positions, and that would ensure that EPP works with S&D, with Renew, in the COP, in the hemicycle. So do you think, are these commitments that a president can do? Is this within the mandate of a president? Is it fair that they're asking about this? Thank you.
Et Christian Spielmann.
Oui, on dirait un peu une catch the eyes, mais bon, je vais la prendre quand même.
je voudrais savoir si vous êtes préoccupé par le fait que les États membres sur le budget risquent de décevoir, que l'on voit encore, comme chaque année, les frugaux, les amis de la PAC, les amis de la cohésion, on pinaille sur des montants, on retranche des milliards, et en fait, on n'a toujours pas un budget qui corresponde à nos ambitions. Et on a été habitué dans le précédent budget à avoir de l'argent qui a été multiplié par 2. Donc, est-ce qu'on peut se permettre aujourd'hui, compte tenu des élections et de la montée des groupements qui sont anti-européens, de décevoir sur ce coup-là?
Merci. So, Vincenzo, if I can take you back a couple of years now. Just before the European elections, we voted the majority of the files of the Asylum Pact, mostly the asylum part, with a clear understanding that work was still needed to be done on returns after 8 years of no movement on that. Then a decision was taken during the new mandate when the proposal was presented by this Commission that Malik Asmani, our colleague from the Liberal Group, would take this as his file. It was always going to be a sensitive and emotional topic, to be clear. And this is why I would not say that this is going to be symptomatic of anything that could happen. But the numbers yesterday were with a 200 vote difference, where you could clearly see that there was a proper majority. And that means that members were ready to take decisions also on return, which is what we see as the security pillar of the Asylum and Migration Pact, which for some, actually for many of the members of the European Parliament, was part and parcel with having voted in favour of the asylum parts 2 years ago. Max, so I'm the president of all members of the European Parliament. I've answered this question before. I am fair, and I really want to be the president of every single member of the European Parliament. Political decisions are made by and between political groups, as have always been done. What I will also say is what I said here is that I have always worked for majorities to be built from the centre outwards, and it is there that we need to see, again, on the MFF, on many files that will come, part of the One Market, One Europe roadmap, as to how we can do things to benefit and to respond to what our European citizens want from us. So political decisions are taken by political groups. I'm the president of all members of the European Parliament. Christian, oui, je suis préoccupée parce que la situation, et nous devons rappeler que le budget précédent n'avait aucun lien avec la réalité aujourd'hui. C'était avant la pandémie, c'était avant la guerre, c'était avant la philosophie complètement changée sur la diversité énergétique et aussi la dépendance. C'était un autre contexte et on a dû travailler beaucoup pendant cette année pour trouver les solutions que les citoyens avaient besoin de nous pendant la pandémie, depuis la guerre, pendant la guerre, etc. Alors maintenant, je pense qu'on a une responsabilité, comme vous avez dit, de répondre aux citoyens qui nous demandent que the bills, payments, les factures, à la fin du mois, c'est possible qu'ils peuvent le payer. Deuxièmement, qu'on peut voir l'Europe, que nous trouvons les solutions pour eux. Et troisièmement, s'il y a une catastrophe naturelle, comme on aura pendant tous les étés, on a des solutions pour les États membres. Alors les discussions, elles sont encore tôt pour définir la solution. C'est pour ça que nous avons dit qu'on a besoin de ressources propres. Et on va travailler sur ça parce que si on fait ça, le taux sur les budgets nationaux sera moins faible que les gouvernements même les frugaux et les autres, ils disent maintenant que c'est trop pour eux.